What would you do if corrupt cops falsely accused you of a crime, just because of the color of your skin? This is the story of James Carter, a former CIA operative who walked into a diner for a simple meal, only to be ambushed, framed, and hunted like a criminal. But what the racist cops didn't know. They had just picked a fight with the wrong man. This action-packed thriller is filled with suspense, gunfights, and shocking twists that will keep you on the edge of your seat. But before we dive in, let me ask you, have you ever witnessed or experienced injustice like this? How would you react if someone tried to ruin your life based on a lie? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for more powerful stories. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Let's get started. The neon lights of Lucky's Diner flickered against the cold Chicago night. Inside, the scent of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee filled the air. James Carter, a tall, well-built black man in his late 30s, sat alone at the counter. He was dressed in a crisp black leather jacket, his demeanor calm but commanding. He took a sip of his coffee, watching the late-night crowd shuffle in and out. When the check arrived, he reached into his wallet, pulled out a crisp $100 bill, and placed it on the counter. The waitress, a young blonde woman, took it with a polite nod before heading to the register. Moments later, her expression shifted, her brows furrowing as she whispered to the cook. James noticed immediately. Something wasn't right. The diner door swung open, and two uniformed officers walked in, Officer Travis Hall and Officer Rick Daniels. Their eyes immediately locked onto James, their postures stiffening as they exchanged looks. The waitress, now visibly nervous, pointed in James' direction. Hall approached the counter with a smirk. "Sir, I need you to step outside with us," he said. James remained seated, his fingers tapping against his coffee cup. "What's the problem, officer?" Daniels held up the $100 bill. "This is counterfeit." James arched an eyebrow. "That's impossible. I just withdrew that from the bank." Hall crossed his arms. "Yeah. And I'm the Pope. Step outside, now." James sighed and rose to his feet. The diner patrons watched silently as the officers led him outside. As soon as they were in the alley behind the diner, the officer's demeanor shifted. "Look at this guy," Hall sneered. "Walking around with fake bills like he owns the place." Daniels cracked his knuckles. "You think you can scam hardworking Americans?" James exhaled, his patience wearing thin. "Check the bill properly. It's real." Hall shoved him against the brick wall. "You don't get to tell us what's real." James clenched his fists, but he didn't resist. His mind raced, analyzing the situation. He had dealt with cops like this before, bullies with a badge. Daniels pulled out his baton. "Let's teach him a lesson." Before the baton could strike, James ducked and twisted, grabbing Daniels' wrist and flipping him onto the pavement. The move was swift, precise, too precise for an average citizen. Hall's eyes widened. "What the hell?" James stepped back, hands raised. "I don't want trouble." Hall pulled his gun. "Too late for that, boy." The night air grew heavy with tension. The distant sounds of the city faded as James locked eyes with the officers. He had mere seconds to act. Just then, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the alley's entrance. The passenger window rolled down, revealing a bald man with a scar across his cheek. He smirked at James. Well, the man said. "Looks like we found you, Carter." Hall turned. "Who the hell are you?" The man chuckled. "Doesn't matter. Step aside, officers. This one's ours." James' jaw tightened. He knew exactly who these men were, and they were far worse than the cops. The officers exchanged glances. "He's our suspect," Daniels argued. The man in the SUV's smirk widened. "Trust me, you don't want to make this your problem." James knew he had no choice. The situation had escalated beyond anything he had expected. The SUV's back door swung open, and two heavily armed men stepped out, rifles in hand. "Looks like you're outnumbered, officers," James muttered. The tension snapped like a rubber band. Gunfire erupted. James dove behind a dumpster as bullets shredded through the alley. The officers scrambled, taking cover behind their squad car. Daniels fired a few shots but missed. The men from the SUV returned fire, their automatic rifles tearing through the night. Hall yelled into his radio. "Officer needs assistance." Shots fired. James took a deep breath. He had spent years avoiding this life, but tonight, it had come for him. He reached for the small pistol strapped to his ankle, time to fight back. The alley exploded with gunfire. Bullets ricocheted off the brick walls, sending sparks flying. James Carter pressed his back against the dumpster, gripping his pistol tightly. His breathing was steady, controlled. Years of training kicked in. He wasn't just any man, he was someone these gunmen should have feared. Officer Hall and Officer Daniels cowered behind their squad car, barely able to return fire. They had come here thinking they were dealing with a simple counterfeit case. Now they were caught in a war zone. The bald man in the SUV barked orders. Kill him. Now. Two gunmen advanced, their rifles raised. James didn't hesitate. He rolled out from behind the dumpster, took aim. And fired, 2 quick shots. The first bullet struck the lead gunman in the shoulder, spinning him backward. The second hit the second shooter's knee, dropping him instantly. Hall peeked from behind the car, stunned. Who the hell is this guy? James sprinted across the alley, dodging incoming fire. The third gunman tried to track him with his rifle, but James was too fast. He slid behind a stack of crates, popped up, and fired twice. The gunman collapsed, his rifle clattering to the ground. The bald man in the SUV's smirk faded. Son of a, before he could finish, James took aim and shot out the SUV's front tire. The heavy vehicle lurched as the rubber exploded, sending the driver scrambling. Fall back. The bald man yelled. The remaining gunmen grabbed their wounded and piled into the SUV. The driver gunned the engine, sparks flying from the shredded tire as the vehicle screeched out of the alley. Silence followed. James stood there, his gun still raised, breathing hard. His sharp eyes scanned for any remaining threats. Officer Daniels finally found his voice. What the hell just happened? James turned to face them. I think you just got saved. Hall narrowed his eyes, gripping his gun tighter. No. No, you're not getting off that easy. He gestured with his weapon. Drop the gun. Hands up. James exhaled sharply. Are you serious? You just killed 3 men. Hall snapped. They were trying to kill me, James shot back. Daniels hesitated, but Hall was unrelenting. I don't care. You're under arrest. James clenched his jaw. He had risked his life protecting these officers, and now they wanted to lock him up. He slowly raised his hands. Fine. But at least let me explain. The sound of sirens filled the air. More police units were closing in. James weighed his options. Surrender and risk whatever corrupt nonsense these cops had planned. Or make his escape. The answer was obvious. With lightning speed, he lunged forward, grabbing Hall's wrist and twisting the gun out of his grip. In the same motion, he pivoted and shoved Daniels aside. Damn it. Hall yelled. Stumbling back, James sprinted toward the nearest fire escape, leaping onto the metal ladder and climbing fast. The officers scrambled to recover. Stop. Hall shouted, drawing his backup gun. James didn't stop. He reached the rooftop, ducked low, and disappeared into the shadows just as more police cars flooded the alley below. Hall cursed under his breath. We need to find out who the hell that guy is. Daniels picked up James' discarded pistol, studying it. Something tells me we just messed with the wrong man. Below, the wounded gunman groaned, and officers rushed to secure the scene, but James was already gone. Somewhere in the city, the real hunt was about to begin. James Carter sprinted across the rooftops, his breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Below, the flashing red and blue lights of police cruisers lit up the alley where the shootout had taken place. The entire block was swarming with officers. He had to move fast, landing gracefully on the next rooftop. He rolled into a crouch and scanned his surroundings. He was on the south side of Chicago, a part of the city he knew well. He could navigate these streets blindfolded, but something was wrong. Those men from the SUV, who were they? Why had they come for him tonight? He hadn't been in this kind of trouble in years. The answer lay in the past. James reached the fire escape on the opposite side of the building and climbed down swiftly. As soon as his boots hit the pavement, he pulled up his hood and melted into the shadows. He had to get off the streets. Back at the crime scene, Officer Travis Hall paced furiously as more officers secured the area. The bodies of the downed gunmen were being loaded into ambulances. The black SUV had been abandoned a few blocks away, the driver nowhere in sight. "This is insane," Hall muttered. One damn guy, took down 3 armed men and got away like a damn ghost." Officer Rick Daniels exhaled. "Who is he?" Hall pulled out his phone. "We're gonna find out." He tapped the screen, calling in a favor. "Detective Moore," a voice answered. "Moore, I need you to run a face recognition scan on a suspect. Black male, mid to late 30s, about 6'2", athletic build. He took down 3 gunmen and evaded capture like some kind of special forces operator." Moore whistled on the other end. "Sounds like you pissed off the wrong guy. Just get me an ID. Sending it through now." A few moments later, Hall's phone pinged. He glanced at the screen, and his face paled. "No way," he breathed. Daniels peered over his shoulder. "What is it?" Hall swallowed hard. "If this file is right, we just tried to arrest one of the most dangerous men in the country." Daniels frowned. "Who the hell is he?" Hall hesitated before saying the name. "James Carter. Ex-CIA, Black Ops." Daniels' eyes widened. "Are you kidding me?" "I wish I was." Hall clenched his jaw. "We just put a target on our backs." The pursuit begins. James walked briskly through a deserted alley, his mind working through his next move. He needed a safe house. Somewhere secure to regroup and gather intel. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a burner phone. Only one person could help him now. He dialed a number. A gruff voice answered. "You got a death wish calling me, Carter." "Nice to hear your voice too, Malik," James said. There was a pause. Then a chuckle. "Damn, man. Thought you were done with this life." "Yeah, me too. But trouble found me." "Where you at?" "South Side. Get to the old auto shop on 47th. I'll meet you there." "On my way." James hung up and moved fast. Police close in. Inside the Chicago Police Department's high-tech surveillance room, Detective Moore worked furiously, pulling traffic cam footage and satellite imaging. "I got him," he muttered. Hall and Daniels leaned in as Moore pointed at a grainy image of James slipping through a side street. "He's heading south," Moore said. "Looks like he's going to ground." Hall clenched his fists. "We need to get to him first." Daniels hesitated. "Are we really doing this? If he's ex-CIA, we should back off." Hall's face twisted with anger. "You want to let him go? After he humiliated us?" Daniels sighed. "I want to stay alive." Hall grabbed a radio. "All units, be advised. James Carter is armed and extremely dangerous. Engage with caution." Within minutes, police units were mobilized. The hunt was on, but James Carter was no ordinary fugitive, and the cops had no idea what they were walking into. James Carter moved through the city's underbelly like a ghost, avoiding cameras, main roads, and anywhere cops might be waiting. He kept his hood low, blending into the crowd when necessary. Chicago was his old stomping ground, and he knew its shadows better than anyone. His destination was an abandoned auto shop on 47th Street, a former hideout he had used in the past. If anyone could help him figure out who was hunting him, it was Malik Carter, his estranged younger brother. He reached the building, a rundown structure with faded paint and shattered windows. He tapped twice on the side door, then once more, a signal. A few seconds passed before the lock clicked. James slipped inside. Inside the hideout, Malik stood in the dim light, his arms crossed. He was shorter than James, but just as solidly built, with a sharp goatee and wary eyes. Unlike James, he had never left the streets. "You look like hell," Malik said. James smirked. "Good to see you too." Malik shut the door and peeked through a boarded-up window. "You being followed?" "Always." Malik exhaled. "Damn, man. You were supposed to be out. What happened?" James sat on an old crate. "I was in a diner. Paid with $100 bill. Cop said it was fake." Malik frowned. "Sounds like a setup." "Yeah. Then some armed guys rolled up, tried to kill me." Malik whistled. "That escalated fast." James nodded. "They weren't random gangsters, Malik. These guys were professionals." Malik rubbed his chin. "And you don't know why they want you dead?" No. James locked eyes with his brother. But I need answers. And I need them fast. Malik sighed. I got some people who can dig. But if this is as big as it sounds, we gotta be careful. James nodded. Then let's move fast. But before they could continue, a distant sound made them both freeze, sirens, then tires screeching, then, boom, the front door exploded inward as a police battering ram slammed through it. Flashbangs rolled inside. James reacted instantly, flipping the crate for cover. Down. He barked. The flashbangs detonated, sending blinding white light through the room. Malik gritted his teeth, shielding his eyes. The cops swarmed in, rifles raised, hands up. Now. Officer Hall roared. Malik looked at James. You brought the damn cops here. James didn't answer. He was already moving. The fight begins. James sprang from cover, disarming the first officer with lightning-fast precision. The cop barely had time to react before James flipped him over his shoulder, sending him crashing into the ground. Another officer fired. Bang! James dodged left, the bullet missing by inches. He grabbed a wrench off the workbench and hurled it. The metal tool struck the officer's wrist, making him drop his gun. Malik took advantage, grabbing a crowbar and swinging it hard. The officer crumpled. Damn, Malik muttered. You still got it. James wasn't listening. More cops were storming in. Hall raised his rifle. Carter. Don't move. James grabbed a metal tray from the workbench and flung it at Hall's face. The officer stumbled back, cursing. Daniels, standing behind Hall, hesitated. We should back off. Hall wasn't listening. He grabbed his taser and fired. ZZZZT, the prongs shot toward James, but James wasn't there. He had already leaped onto the workbench and launched himself at Hall. He tackled the officer to the ground, slamming a fist into his jaw. Malik turned to James. We need to go, now. More police sirens blared outside. Backup was arriving. James grabbed Hall's radio. This is Officer Hall, he said in a perfect imitation of the cop's voice. Suspects are in custody. Situation under control. The dispatcher's voice crackled. Copy that, Officer Hall. Malik raised an eyebrow. You always were a sneaky bastard. James smirked. Let's move. They slipped out the back, vanishing into the night, but Hall, lying on the ground, clenched his jaw in rage. This isn't over, he growled. James and Malik moved swiftly through the back alleys, their footsteps muffled by years of knowing exactly where to step. The sirens faded as the police, fooled by James' radio trick, focused on securing the auto shop. That was too damn close, Malik muttered as they cut through a dimly lit side street. James nodded but remained focused. Hall won't let this go. He's got a personal vendetta now. Yeah, well, I don't like being in the crossfire of your enemies, Malik shot back. James ignored the jab. He pulled out his burner phone and dialed a number. It rang once before a gruff voice answered. Carter. Dex, I need an ID on a crew that rolled up on me earlier. Black SUV, military tactics. High-grade weapons. There was a pause. Then a sigh. You're stirring up trouble again. Just get me something. Dex grunted. Meet me at the old factory on 39th in an hour. James hung up and turned to Malik. You in? Malik scoffed. Like I got a choice. Officer Hall's next move. Back at the Chicago PD precinct, Officer Travis Hall seethed as he replayed the body cam footage from the auto shop raid. James Carter had dismantled his men like they were rookies. The man was dangerous. Daniels leaned against the desk. Hall, maybe we should rethink this. Carter isn't some street thug. He's ex-CIA. This is bigger than us. Hall clenched his fists. I don't care who he is. He humiliated me. He took down our guys. I want him in cuffs. Daniel sighed. And what if he's innocent? Hall shot him a glare. Doesn't matter. He resisted arrest, attacked officers. That's enough. Daniels hesitated, then shook his head. You're letting this get personal. Hall ignored him and grabbed his phone. He dialed a number. Stepping away, a voice answered. Speak. I need a team. Off the books. There was a chuckle on the other end. You want mercs for a cop job? Hall's jaw tightened. I want Carter. And I don't care how it happens. The line went silent for a moment. Then the voice said, consider it done. Hall smirked. Good. The meeting at the factory, James and Malik reached the abandoned factory on 39th Street. It was a relic from the past, its rusted steel beams and shattered windows telling stories of a long-forgotten industrial boom. Inside, a lone figure stood near an old workbench. Dex, a former intelligence analyst turned underground fixer, eyed James warily. You really know how to make enemies, Dex muttered. James smirked. It's a gift. Dex tossed a folder onto the workbench. The crew that hit you? Black Ridge. James' expression darkened. Private military contractors. Not just any, Dex said. These guys do black ops for the highest bidder. And guess who hired them? James flipped open the folder. The name on the contract made his blood boil. Officer Travis Hall. Malik leaned in. The hell is a cop doing hiring mercenaries? Dex shrugged. Your boy Hall has connections. And now he's put a bounty on you. James exhaled sharply. He doesn't know what he just started. Dex's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and cursed. You need to go. Now. James tensed. What is it? Dex looked at him. It's a trap. Hall is coming. And he's bringing the mercs. Outside, the distant growl of engines filled the air. James checked his gun. Then let's give them a welcome. Malik groaned. This is gonna be bad. James smirked. For them. James and Malik moved swiftly through the back alleys, their footsteps muffled by years of knowing exactly where to step. The sirens faded as the police, fooled by James' radio trick, focused on securing the auto shop. That was too damn close, Malik muttered as they cut through a dimly lit side street. James nodded but remained focused. Hall won't let this go. He's got a personal vendetta now. Yeah, well, I don't like being in the crossfire of your enemies, Malik shot back. James ignored the jab. He pulled out his burner phone and dialed a number. It rang once before a gruff voice answered, Carter. Dex, I need an ID on a crew that rolled up on me earlier. Black SUV, military tactics. High-grade weapons. There was a pause. Then a sigh. You're stirring up trouble again. Just get me something. Dex grunted. Meet me at the old factory on 39th in an hour. James hung up and turned to Malik. You in? Malik scoffed. Like I got a choice. Officer Hall's next move, back at the Chicago PD precinct, Officer Travis Hall seated as he replayed the body cam footage from the auto shop raid. James Carter had dismantled his men like they were rookies. The man was dangerous. Daniels leaned against the desk. Hall, maybe we should rethink this. Carter isn't some street thug. He's ex-CIA. This is bigger than us. Hall clenched his fists. I don't care who he is. He humiliated me. He took down our guys. I want him in cuffs. Daniels sighed. And what if he's innocent? Hall shot him a glare. Doesn't matter. He resisted arrest, attacked officers. That's enough. Daniels hesitated, then shook his head. You're letting this get personal. Hall ignored him and grabbed his phone. He dialed a number, stepping away. A voice answered. Speak. I need a team. Off the books. There was a chuckle on the other end. You want mercs for a cop job? Hall's jaw tightened. I want Carter. And I don't care how it happens. The line went silent for a moment. Then the voice said, consider it done. Hall smirked. Good. The meeting at the factory, James and Malik reached the abandoned factory on 39th Street. It was a relic from the past, its rusted steel beams and shattered windows telling stories of a long-forgotten industrial boom. Inside, a lone figure stood near an old workbench. Dex, a former intelligence analyst turned underground fixer, eyed James warily. You really know how to make enemies, Dex muttered. James smirked. It's a gift. Dex tossed a folder onto the workbench. The crew that hit you? Black Ridge. James' expression darkened. Private military contractors. Not just any, Dex said. These guys do black ops for the highest bidder. And guess who hired them? James flipped open the folder. The name on the contract made his blood boil. Officer Travis Hall. Malik leaned in. The hell is a cop doing hiring mercenaries? Dex shrugged. Your boy Hall has connections. And now he's put a bounty on you. James exhaled sharply. He doesn't know what he just started. Dex's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and cursed. You need to go. Now. James tensed. What is it? Dex looked at him. It's a trap. Hall is coming. And he's bringing the mercs. Outside, the distant growl of engines filled the air. James checked his gun. Then let's give them a welcome. Malik groaned. This is gonna be bad. James smirked. For them. Gunfire echoed through the abandoned factory, sending sparks flying as bullets ricocheted off steel beams and shattered rusted machinery. James Carter ducked behind a concrete pillar, his grip firm on the stolen rifle. Across the factory floor, Officer Travis Hall prowled like a predator, his gun raised, eyes locked onto his target. You don't get it, do you? Hall shouted, stepping over the bodies of fallen mercenaries. You're done, Carter. No one's coming to save you. James smirked as he reloaded. I never needed saving. Hall growled and fired 3 quick shots. Bang. 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 The bullets chipped away at James' cover, forcing him to move. He darted to the left, sliding behind an old metal crate. Firing as he went, rat-tat-tat-tat, Hall ducked just in time, the bullets barely missing him. From the catwalk above, Malik took aim. Got you now, you racist piece of. Before he could pull the trigger, a mercenary who had survived the initial ambush fired up at him. Bang, the shot clipped Malik's arm, sending him tumbling onto the catwalk. James' eyes widened. Malik. Malik groaned, clutching his bleeding arm. I'm good. Get this bastard. James gritted his teeth and turned his focus back to Hall. He wasn't letting him walk away from this. The truth comes out. Hall ducked behind a rusted support beam, panting heavily. His hand trembled as he reloaded. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Carter was just some fugitive. A black ex-agent who got in over his head. He wasn't supposed to be this damn good. You set this all up, didn't you? James' voice echoed through the factory. Hall wiped sweat from his brow. I don't know what you're talking about. James stepped out of cover, gun still aimed. The fake $100 bill. The mercenaries. The hit squad at the diner. This wasn't just about an arrest. You wanted me dead. Hall laughed bitterly. Damn right I did. James narrowed his eyes. Why? Hall's lips curled into a sneer. Because people like you don't get to walk free. You think because you wore a government badge, you're different. You're just another thug in a suit. James' grip on the rifle tightened. That's why you did all this? Because of my skin color? Hall shrugged. It's not personal. Just the way the world works. James exhaled sharply. Not anymore. The final shot, Hall raised his pistol, James moved first. Bang, James' bullet tore through Hall's shoulder, spinning him around. The officer crashed onto his back, his gun skidding across the floor. He groaned, clutching his wound. You're making a mistake. James slowly walked up to him, stepping over the bodies that littered the floor. He stood over Hall, gun aimed at his head. Hall's breath came in ragged gasps. Kill me. And you prove me right. James stared down at him. His finger hovering over the trigger. Every instinct screamed for him to end it. This man had tried to murder him. He had abused his power. He was corrupt to the core, but James wasn't a killer. Not like that. Instead, he pulled Hall's police radio from his belt and pressed the button. This is James Carter, he said into the receiver. I'm at the old factory on 39th. I have Officer Travis Hall in custody. He's wounded but alive. Hall's eyes widened. What the hell are you doing? James smirked. Making sure you pay the right way. The radio crackled. Who is this? James ignored the voice. He tossed the radio aside and turned away. Malik limped down from the catwalk, still holding his arm. You let him live? James nodded. He's done either way. Dex peeked out from behind a crate. Cops are coming, man. We gotta move. James exhaled and nodded. Then let's disappear. The aftermath: by the time the police stormed the factory, James, Malik, and Dex were long gone. The responding officers found Hall bleeding on the floor, surrounded by bodies. His lies unraveled quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. The mercenaries were linked back to him, and Daniels had already started talking. Within 48 hours, Travis Hall was behind bars, charged with conspiracy, corruption, and attempted murder. As for James Carter, he vanished into the shadows once more, but one thing was certain: he wasn't done yet. And the people who had come for him, they would regret it. Wow! What a ride! James Carter took on corrupt cops, mercenaries, and a deadly conspiracy, proving that justice always finds a way. But what do you think? Did he handle things the right way, or would you have done something different? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more people can experience these powerful stories. And if you want more action-packed content like this, turn on that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.